Hi, and welcome to Simon Says. Today we're going to talk about one of my favorite subjects, Superman 2025. So, for those new to the channel, my name is Jose Simon, or Jose Simone. I'm the host of Simon Says, where we talk about geek stuff, including superhero, comics, anime, manga, tabletop RPGs, movies, film, TV, whatever it is I like, really. But in this case, I am a huge Superman fan. I've been a lifelong fan of Superman, and generally, he's one of my top favorite superheroes. There have been a few times in my life where I veered into like Wolverine is my favorite or Batman or something like that, but generally, for most of my life, Superman has been my favorite hero, or in the top two or three at most. He's never gone that far down. That said, I own about 20 of these t-shirts with different Superman symbols. So, and I spent way too much time and money on Superman merch. So naturally, a lot of people have asked me what my opinion on Superman is. So I wanted to give everybody a chance to watch the movie themselves and judge for themselves before I kind of went into it, because it is a little difficult for me to just give a straight answer to that. I do kind of have to explain some of the things that I have to explain this review. So this is what this video is about. I do want to say, to not bury the lead, I did like the movie. I do have some issues with it, though. I have some very fundamental issues with some of the ideas that were presented. I think they took some pretty good steps forward, but they didn't quite land all the things that they were trying to. So I want to talk about those things and kind of go over some of the things I didn't like. We'll go over some of the things I did like. But I have some notes here. Excuse me while I put my Clark Kent glasses on here and take a read from my notes here. So we're going to start off at the things that I didn't like. And some of this is going to sound really nitpicky, and that's fair, because I am, like I said, a huge Superman fan. And for those of you who've been following this show or my videos before, you know that I'm very overly critical of the things that I like. And since Superman is one of the big things that I like, I'm going to be overly critical of nearly everything that comes out. So it's going to be almost impossible to please me. But still, I want things to be perfect. And these are some of my complaints. So let's go. Let's get into that. Right off the bat, I'm going to go with like mostly aesthetic stuff, because those little things, like I said, it's the little things that add up that made me kind of a little bit disappointed in this movie. Again, not that it was a bad movie. I was just disappointed in some of the execution. So right off the bat, I'm a hair guy, and I was not fond of David's hair in this movie. It had like those little kind of spikes in the back, and it was just a little crazy, a little bit too long, and it got a little too weird in places. I wish they would have cleaned it up a little bit. And to be fair, Man of Steel and even Superman Returns didn't quite get it right the first time either. Zack Snyder's movies, Batman v Superman and Justice League afterwards did manage to nail it down afterwards. But in all fairness, nobody quite got it right the first time. So here's hoping that, moving forward, they kind of correct that issue. One of the things I did really like about the aesthetic wise was the colors. Everything was really bright and sunlit and, really kind of in your face, as it should be when you're watching a Superman movie. Superman is not Batman, and there's nothing wrong with Batman. I love Batman too. As you can see back there, I love Batman too, but he's not Superman. So his movies should have a different tone. And the bright blue, like the bright colors and all that stuff, I loved it. That said, I did have some issues with his suit. I love the trunks. Let me just start off there. I love the trunks. Superman should have trunks. Sorry if you disagree with me, you're wrong. I won't hear anything else about it. Superman's costume should have red trunks. The end. I like the symbol a lot. This is actually my favorite symbol. I like the original a little bit better, which is comes from a comic called Kingdom Come by Mark Waid. If you haven't read it, please go out and read it. It's awesome. But I do like the symbol a lot, where it originally came from. And then the other thing I really liked about the costume was the cape. I don't know why, but for some reason the cape really stood out to me, and I loved the texture of it, the look of it. It had the yellow shield on the back, which a lot of the movies don't do for some reason, and the shows. But I did like that it was there. So kudos to them for that. That said, like the material and the kind of overall look of the suit was just too bulky and too kind of weird looking for me. There was a couple of shots where he's like his handcuffs or his hands are handcuffed behind his back, and it just makes him look too square. I don't know. It just looked off. The suit looked off. I really hope they fix that. I hope maybe they get some kind of combination between, the Superman and Lois suit, the original one where he wore, like when it first came out, and I don't know, Brandon Ruth. But both of those were kind of good, but I'm hoping they tweak it a little bit. Even the Man of Steel suit had some issues, and again, to go back real quick and caveat this, I watched the movie twice because I wanted to watch it again, make sure like I just wasn't having a bad day or it was a bad experience or whatever. And then I went back and watched Superman Returns and Man of Steel and Batman v Superman, etc. Because I kind of wanted to prime myself for this, right? I wanted to give myself a broader view of all the live action Supermans that have come out before. And even though it's not fair to judge one movie by the ones that came before it, inevitably, because these are similar topics and similar movie subjects, there's going to be some comparison, right? Like if you have two oranges and they come from two different places, inevitably your brain is going to kind of draw some comparisons between the both of them. So I did do that, in preparation for this review. All that said, though, I'm not going to let what Man of Steel or Superman Returns or any of that stuff, influence my decisions on this movie. But it was just kind of a frame of reference type of deal. I wasn't crazy about like the overall look of the costume other than the trunks and the colors and the cape. Like the core of the costume was just too bulky for me. Wasn't crazy about his hair. It was a little weird for me. That said, we start off with this, scroll telling us the history of what's gone down before as far as metahumans and Superman. It was, I don't know, it felt a little clunky to me, like this 3000 to 3333, whatever. It wasn't terrible, but I didn't love it either. I felt there's probably better ways you could have done that. When Man of Steel came out, and I really wasn't fond of that either. Somebody challenged me to write a movie, I did, and the kind of way I would have opened it was, if you remember back to Spider-Man 2, I think it was, where they had like the opening credits and they just showed kind of the backstory of what had happened before. I would have done something like that with storyboard of the rocket leaving, landing, whatever, blah, blah, blah. That's kind of how I would have done it, as just kind of like a storyboard, but, to each his own. Where else are we going? Oh, so, we get Superman, and right away we see, the first thing we see of Superman is him beaten down in Antarctica. He's bloody. He got beat. It's his first time he lost a fight. And we're kind of, James Gunn is right away, setting the tone for this movie, which is, this is a vulnerable Superman that works best with friends, with his relationships is a big part of who he is and how he handles things. And it's not just he's this most powerful guy in the world. He can do everything by himself, and he can beat everybody by himself. He's very powerful, but he needs friends, and his his relationship with his family and his friends and the people around him makes a big part of who he is. I get it. Cool. All right. But the flip side to that is, if you're going to do that, it's still a Superman movie, and we have to have the balance, right? At some point, we have to see actually Superman taking care of things himself as well. We have to see that Superman is a very powerful, and he's the number one superhero around. There's a reason why he's like the guardian of Earth, et cetera, et cetera. Like, so if you're going to do one, you have to do the other. At some point, you have to balance those two out. We show his vulnerable side, but also show his powerful, for lack of a better term, badass side, him taking care of business, so to speak. And we never really get that. And that's kind of one of my issues with this movie. But anyway, Crypto comes along, and this is, again, one of those things that Crypto bothered me. I know I'm going to get a lot of flack for this, but because he's a dog and he's cute and whatever, but I didn't like Crypto. I'm going to get to Crypto later, but for now, just understand that I have problems with Crypto being in this movie as much as he is and all of that. But let's keep going so that we can hit everything, because otherwise this video is going to go on forever. Some other things that I didn't like. I didn't really like that his parents, his Earth parents, his Kansas parents, the Kents, were so for lack of a better word, podunk. They were very bumpkin, country bumpkin, and I just felt they deserved a little bit more. They're usually not portrayed that way, and for good reason, because they are very much a part of who Clark Kent, and by extension Superman, is. So I felt like they could have gave him a little bit more, I don't know, agency, a little bit more intelligence. They felt like they were a little bit of a joke. I mean, that's how it played off, and it never really fixed that. There was some attempt at the end with those little scenes and all that stuff, but even those, I mean, it was a little bit too late. Your impression is made. It's a little bit too little, too late at that point. So I kind of wish they would have not made them as country hee-haw, whatever you want to call it, as they did. That said, I did like the scenes with the Kents. I love, probably one of the best scenes in the entire movie is when, Pa Kent tells him he's so proud of him. Because that is, something that Pa Kent would say and would do. Yeah. What else we go? So some of the things that the movie got right were the idea that Superman cares about everybody and he's out to save everybody and he doesn't kill. And that's great. They did a really great job kind of letting you know that was Superman's thing, right? And I like that it inspires hope in people and that inspired goodness and righteousness in people and all that stuff. But if we go back and really analyze this movie, and again, I saw it twice, and I'll probably see it again, but that doesn't seem to be the case throughout the movie, right? Like, we previously established how bad or his conflicting views with the Justice Gang and how they handle things, right? The property damage, the killing of the kaiju. Kaiju is a different story. We'll get into that too. But anyway, the killing of the kaiju. And then, a couple scenes later, there's an interdimensional imp in Metropolis wreaking havoc. And he's like, oh, the Justice Gang got that. Like, no, bro, you literally just established you didn't like the way they handle things. You couldn't trust them to handle things the way you wanted to handle it. And now all of a sudden you're just cool letting a interdimensional imp run loose in Metropolis because for the hell of it, because you're tired. Like, that's not Superman to me, and that's never going to be Superman to me. And that was a really sore note that I had. When they did the promotional image, I was just like, no, that he's like getting ready or something. He's not just going to sit there and like be taking his boots off while there's a terror running around in Metropolis. Like, come on, man, that's not Superman. No one would dare put a scene like that in it. And for some reason, James Gunn did, and that's a really weird choice. That doesn't really make a lot of sense. To go with this, let's keep going on this little theme of like, they tell us something but don't show us something, which is they tell us he cares about property damage, they tell us he cares about lives, but he doesn't actually follow through with that all of the time, right? We see in the scene where he's in the pocket dimension, Mr. Terrific makes a specific remark about being in the Proton River would kill them. And then he's sitting there fighting all these guys in the Ravens, I forget what it's called, the Raven Guard or whatever. They're the Lex suits, the guys in the Lex suits that are flying around. And he's like lasering them, or heat visioning them, sorry. Don't revoke my Superman card. Heat visioning them and, punching them. And I specifically remember the second time I saw the movie, like one of those guys fell into the river after getting heat visioned. And unless he just like somehow just scratched the surface without, breaking the seal, that dude's dead as soon as he hits that river. And Superman didn't like try to prevent that. He just hit that guy and he fell in the river and that guy's done. Like, it's a him. Later on in the movie, all these guys are flying around and he's like, yeah, good luck with that. And he's like lasering all of them. Again, these guys are flying, falling from like how many stories up. They're in armor. That like the armor is not going to stop the impact and your brain, bouncing around inside of your skull when you hit the ground from a sudden stop. Like, those guys are dead. It doesn't matter if they have armor on. Like, it's not stopping that part of it. But anyway, yeah. And then we have the very much killing of Bizarro. Sorry, Ultraman. because it's not technically Bizarro, even though, those of us who know better know it's Bizarro, or it should be Bizarro. But yeah, again, in the previously established scene, Superman himself says that if he goes into the black hole, he would not survive it. And what happens? He engineers, a pun there, he engineers for Ultraman to be thrown into the black hole. Like, he did that. So as far as Superman, I mean, regardless of whether Ultraman survives or not, and I think that's maybe how they get him to the next universe where he actually becomes Ultraman, or maybe he goes Bizarro world in the next dimension or whatever it is, if he survives. But ultimately, as far as Superman at the time knows, that killed him. And he did that. He pushed him in there. He caused that death. So, again, this is one of those, they're telling us one thing, but they're showing us another. The Justice League going to Barovia to stop the invasion. I had several problems with this. One, in the way I see Superman and the way I think a good Superman is written, is he would very much feel responsible for sending the Justice Gang over there to stop this. So even if he's fighting Engineer and Ultraman, part of his hearing, his consciousness would be on listening to what's going on over there, because he ultimately sent these people in his stead to stop this war. And what happens over there? We get the terrible, terrible screeching of Hawkgirl, who, that's all she did all movie long, was screech around and hit people with a mace, which, I mean, how can they not be dead, right? Like, she's hitting dudes with a mace. They're flying across into like walls and stuff. Those guys are dead. And then she drops the leader, clearly killing him. And they play it off as a joke, like, oh, then they throw the Alka-Seltzer in like it. She just killed somebody. It shouldn't be a funny joke, and Superman should be really concerned about that. To go back to the scene again, because I'm going to jump all over the place. I apologize. I'm going all over the place as things kind of come up. I do have notes here, but I'm not even going off them at this point. But yeah, so the Justice Gang is in Barovia. One of the things that I felt for this movie is, like, I really thought that I was gonna feel a lot, right? Like, I saw the trailer, the John Williams score, that guitar riff, him saving, the kid, and it just seemed like it was the Superman movie that I wanted, that I always wanted. It was going to show everything that I wanted, and it wound up not being that, and it was a little disappointing, because I kept wanting to feel like I did during that trailer, like, this is awesome, this is everything I wanted, and I kind of never got it. And I thought when we finally got the little kid and his sister in Barovia lifting up the flag and yelling, Superman, Superman, I thought that was going to be the moment where, like, they finally got me. Okay, Superman's going to sweep in somehow. He's going to make it, right? Because that's what Superman does. He does the impossible. Even though he's getting the fight of his life over here in Metropolis, halfway across the world, there's this one little boy who's about to get shot, and he's calling his name out. He's put all his faith in Superman, and he's about to get riddled with bullets. That's what Superman does. Somehow he makes it there, despite all odds, despite the impossibility of it, to save this boy. And that is what I wanted. That was the moment that I was waiting for the whole movie. And it was so disappointing for Guy Gardner to have the save, which we'll go into another thing, but that moment was so disappointing for me, because it could have been an easy, like, scene where, like, even if you want the Justice Gang to show up and show them doing stuff too, right? Like, you could have still established that Superman somehow saved the boy at the very least. Like, you could have established Mr. Terrific gave Superman an earpiece earlier, and you hear mid-fight, Superman's listening to the kid over there, and then in his other ear you hear Guy Gardner, like, we're not going to make it in time to help. And you may be thinking, the audience might be thinking that they're talking about the Justice Gang arriving in time to Metropolis to help Superman fight off Ultraman and the Engineer. And, we'll find out shortly that's not the case. But anyway, that's kind of where you would leave the audience, is that, like, oh man, they're coming to save the day or whatever. And meanwhile, Superman's worried about these guys over here. And what happens is Superman hears this kid about to get shot. He uses freeze breath or whatever the case to get these guys off him for a few seconds, because a few seconds is all he needs to zoom over there, land in front of the boy, take a few bullets, and then you hear Guy Gardner just saying, "We're here," and he, they do the thing that they were going to do anyway, and then in those few seconds, Superman turns to the boy and say, "I gotta go, but I've sent some friends to help," and then he zooms off. That would have made my day. It would have been perfect because the boy would have got his faith in Superman would have been rewarded, and we would have got the scene that we wanted. Something to that effect. I mean, it could have been written by, it could have been written in a better way, however you want to call it. But I mean, I think something along those lines would have worked super well, and it would have been the payoff that I was looking for anyway, me personally. Yeah. So, as I was saying with the Justice League and Guy Gardner saving the day and all that stuff, this movie was very much, while it showed Superman not being vulnerable and needing, relying on friends, and it was a little overboard. We went too much that way. We went too much to the vulnerable and needing friends and all that stuff side, to the point where Superman didn't do a lot in this movie. Like, most of the best moments were not Superman moments, and I want to see a Superman movie like about Superman saving the day, not the Justice Gang, not Krypto, who, by the way, saved him 3 times in this movie. Without Krypto, Superman would have died 3 times. Saves him in the Antarctic, where he brings him to the Fortress of Solitude. He saves him in the Proton River, or he almost saves him in the Proton River, and then he blows himself out with a super breath. But anyway, he initially saves him in the Proton River, and then he saves him versus Ultraman. It's like, if this dog didn't exist, and it's not even his dog, it's his cousin's dog, which I assume they're going to make it his dog at some point. But whatever the case is, the dog was in it too much. And I know it's James Gunn, he wants to do this cutesy thing with animals and whatever, but I still want to see a Superman movie. I don't want to see Krypto movie. Like, Krypto's cool, but he's not that cool, at least not to me. Like, I'm sure I don't have a problem with Krypto in the comics, but I don't want to see Krypto in every comic. I don't want to see him doing everything with Superman. Like, that's not, I want to see A Boy and His Dog, the movie. Like, I want to see Superman. Okay? So, yeah, I had a problem with Krypto. Sorry, when I first did the video, I forgot to include one final part that kind of annoyed me about Krypto, and that was that Krypto, I didn't like that he was so unruly, right? And I understand that they played it for jokes, but like, it wasn't funny to me that Superman has this crazy, unruly dog. I do like that he's kind of willing to do anything to go save him. He's scared and he's alone. That was an awesome Superman moment. But on the other side of the scale, you then have Superman that allows Krypto, and again, we have previously established that Krypto has like no control, right? He hits Superman with enough force to knock him down, and he hits people with enough force to knock him down. His jaws destroy steel, etc. And he's perfectly fine with letting this dog has no control, like, maul Lex Luthor. I mean, Lex Luthor should have died, Superman just standing there and just letting it happen, again, threw me right out of the movie. I'm like, I get it. Like, he's like, come on. And I'm like, that's what I'm saying in the theater too. I'm like, come on, man. Like, do something. This is ridiculous. So yes, while Krypto is cute and all that, ultimately, to me, he detracts from the story overall, because he's there to like save Superman. They play him up for like these jokey moments, but in the end, all they're doing is really detracting from Superman and the movie. Sorry, not sorry. The Jimmy thing was kind of weird. This like whole thing where he's like this super hot guy that every girl likes. I thought they were gonna make it like a thing where he, like, because he's Superman's best friend, he's got clout, and that's why girls like him. But no, they just kind of went into this whole thing where like Superman or Jimmy is like this super hot guy that all girls like, and instead of Lois doing some like investigative reporting and finding out stuff, like, we get it because Jimmy's super crush has sends him information, and like, it was weird. You didn't give like Lois, you could have gave that part, that investigative journalist angle to Lois, and she could have figured out where, what was going on and all that stuff. And I mean, she does with Jimmy, but it was like the way they got to it kind of demeans Lois's journalistic bent, so to speak. So that was weird. I did feel like the movie was a little bit cartoony at times, and like the CGI was, in my opinion, not that good. Metamorpho at times looked okay, and at times looked really cheesy. Some of the some of the costuming as well, I wasn't crazy about. It looked very off because they were trying to make it like they were trying to make it comic booky, right? And that's the I don't want you to try to make it comic booky. Just treat it like it's a movie that you're like. I mean, Marvel Studios was able to do it. I don't understand. Like they have, for the most part, comic accurate costumes. You can do that too without making it look overly goofy, right? We know it's possible. I mean, if you would have spent a little time in trying to, do the same, I think we could have gotten some better costuming, some better CGI. There was some stuff that looked really awful to me. Anyway, another, I'm gonna, like I said, I'm going back and forth here. I'm just kind of looking on this list and letting you know what I thought. There was a little bit, like to go with the cartoony, there was a little bit of a jokey kind of stuff in there. Like I said, with the Alka-Seltzer, even if the guy was dying, they make a joke of it by splashing the Alka-Seltzer. The same thing happens with the Superman robot number 4. And this one kind of annoyed me a little bit because it was so easy, right? It was the low-hanging fruit that was right there. All he had to do was pluck it, and he did it. He went for the joke instead. And instead of Superman 4 being Gary, Superman Robot 4 being Gary, it should have been Kellex. For those that don't know Superman or don't read Superman, Kellex is like his main robot in this Fortress of Solitude. It's the guy who takes care of his fortress when he's not there. He's like the main guy in charge. His Jarvis, if you will. For those MCU fans that are new, Jarvis is all you know. Like, it was his Jarvis, essentially. And they went for this dumb Gary joke instead of just making it Kellex. You could have just introduced another of Superman mythos, but you chose not to. You chose to make a joke. Why can't you just? Why can't you be Kellex? It's like you don't have to go for the joke every time. Like, I get we want to make a lighthearted movie and all that, but like also treat it a little bit seriously. Like, not everything is a joke or has to be played for a joke. Let's see. Some of the things I liked was sorry. No, one of the things I did really like about the movie, though, is and I've been saying this for years now, Superman is more relatable than people like to assume. One of the biggest things I always hear about people who don't like Superman is they say he's not relatable, he's an alien, Batman is so much more believable, he's a human, and I can train to be Batman. Like, it's such a ridiculous argument. No, you can't. Okay? Batman is in a lot more ways more unbelievable and more alien to the average citizen of Earth than Superman. Superman has a job. He has parents, he has friends, he has a girlfriend, he has a boss, he has deadlines, he pays bills, he has an apartment, etc. And he needs to do all the things that we essentially do as humans and as adults to make his way as Clark. He also has another side of him, which is Superman. That's a different thing. Batman is old country rich, whose family basically built a city, from the ground up, founded a city. He's like a billionaire. He's like one of the most richest people on the planet. He has like impossibly perfect genetics. Like, it's, again, if you're going by suspension of disbelief, Batman is more unbelievable than Superman. Because if you're already going to accept that Superman is an alien, then you can pretty much, you have a wide range of suspension of disbelief, right? But if you're trying to play that Batman is a normal person, your suspension of disbelief is only as believable as a normal human being would be, right? So in many ways, Batman is less relatable and less believable in terms of a story like this than Superman is. And I like that he makes a point of telling Lex Luthor, like, all of this. I mean, I wish somebody else would have said it. Like, it's a little cheesy when you have to say my greatest strength is that I am like human. I think like humans. I make mistakes. I'm scared, etc. It would have been better if somebody else said that. I feel like it's a little cheesy when you say it, but I'll take what I can get. I'm not going to nitpick too bad. I do like that it was said, and that it was a point to make to Lex and everybody else that Superman is very much like us in the terms of how he thinks, what his daily life is like outside of superheroics. He's pretty much just like us. Like, he was a nerd. He feels like he's an outsider. You know, that's a very common and understandable and relatable experience. Like, you know, at some point when we're in high school and we're young, we all think like nobody's like us. Nobody can think like us. No, like, I feel alone in this world. You know, at some point, everybody goes through that, right? That's what Superman goes through all the time. So I really like that they pointed that out. Um, one of my, again, minor points that I can't explain why was like, what was the plan with the dive bombing? And he had nanites. Like, what? It seemed like that was his go-to move in this movie. Like, he does it with the kaiju, and then he does it when he's trapped with nanites. Like, what was his plan? Like, to just fly up and then dive bomb straight down? I don't understand how that, like, dive bombing the floor would get nanites out of your lungs. That does not compute to me. I still think that's a big plot hole. And he was going to do that regardless. And like, people are like, oh, well, he did that to get the people off him. I'm like, no, he was going to do that anyway. Like, they caught up to him and then surrounded him in more of the stuff. But like, it looks like his original plan was to do that exact thing. Now, maybe it was to go up there, and what I thought he was going to pull an Iron Man and just go up there and, like, because of the super cold temperatures in space, it would freeze out the nanites and he would just like cough them out or whatever. It doesn't appear like that was the case, or that was going to happen. His whole plan was just dive bomb the ground again, work with the kaiju, right? Like, or whatever. So yeah, I don't understand what the dive bombing everything was about, but I would love to hear a better explanation for what his actual plan was to get the nanites out, because that seemed kind of dumb. Okay. Couple more things before we wrap up. I got to talk about the music, and this whole punk rocker Superman. I really hate it. I hate that they, like, you know, put this label on him. Don't get me wrong. The Iggy Pop punk rocker song, it's very catchy. I mean, I've been humming it all day myself. It's a great song. Is it Superman? Is Superman punk rock? I mean, are we trying to say that because punk rock is like anti-establishment and you're true to yourself and your beliefs, and, you know, I just, is that what we're trying to say that punk rock is now? Because you could really say that about almost any genre of music. And the thing with Superman is, like, you don't want to label him. Like, you don't say he's a Democrat or a Republican or this or that, because you don't want to alienate anybody. Like, I don't really know about punk rock, so I do feel a little left out, because I don't know who the Mighty Crabjoy Tones, whatever they're called, are. And I could care less for their music, apparently, because I hated the Mr. Terrific scene too, where, like, he's in this bubble, or Lois is in this bubble, and they have this terrible music playing. And I'm sorry, I know a lot of people like it. I thought it was terrible. It brought me right out of the scene. Both times I saw it, I was just like, this is not working. I understand that it worked in Guardians of the Galaxy because that was a very jokey movie, and that's kind of the tone you were going for. And there was a big, like, music was a big part of that movie. I mean, established from the very beginning of the movie. But this wasn't that type of movie, and you really tried to, James Gunn, I know he's like a real big fan of punk rock. Like, this was his thing to try to interject this into this movie. I don't like it. I'm sorry. Say what you will, but the only songs I actually liked were the guitar riff of the Superman Returns original song. I mean, again, I like the punk rocker Iggy Pop song, but it just doesn't. It's not Superman, or it doesn't. Not that it's not Superman, but I don't feel like it gels well with what we're trying to say about Superman. Because, you know, anti-establishment, true to yourself, you know, all that stuff could be said of jazz, hip hop, like a bunch of other things, and to label it punk rock is kind of weird. I mean, that's not what I think of when I think of punk rock. And yeah, you're trying to do this weird juxtaposition of, like, opposite, whatever it is. It doesn't work for me. I'm sorry. It doesn't work for me. It's not going to work for me. I don't think it'll land in time. I think people will come to see that it was a little weird choice. And then here is one of my biggest issues with this movie. The Kryptonian parents message. Yeah. It looks like James Gunn was watching Invincible a little too much, or he fell in love with that idea. And to be fair, this idea has floated around before that the Kryptonians sent them here, whatever. I mean, Dragon Ball did it. Like it's it's all over the place, right? But it's not Superman. And one of the things I didn't really like about Man of Steel was Pa Kent wasn't really on board with him being Superman. And I hated that too. And I hated it in Smallville. Because Superman is supposed... It ultimately... And I hate that I have to explain this, because it's really like... It's at the core of Superman, right? And like... Superman is the story of an immigrant, okay? Whether you want to call him he's an illegal alien in all senses of the word, right? But he ultimately is an immigrant. And if you don't get the Kents raising him the way they did, and then the reinforcement of the Kryptonians raising him, or their message and why they did what they did, you don't get Superman. He has those strong moral values from both sides, and there he's able to be Clark Kent and have those ideals and moral values, and he's able to be Kal-El and have those moral ideals and values. And then those two form Superman. It's like a triangle, right? You have Clark Kent, you have Kal-El, you have Superman. And we get Superman by both of those sides showing and leading and being the example and raising Clark Kent, Kal-El, Superman in a particular way. If those sides don't work out like that, you don't get Superman. And the problem with this, and like it actually does, piss me off a little bit, because James Gunn has gone on saying that like this is true. He's not going to change this, whatever. Okay, here's the thing, though. If the Kryptonian parents really sent him to do that, you're justifying every single thing that Lex did. Lex is 100% justified in thinking aliens are going to come down here and take over the Earth. He's justified in having Kryptonian weapons. He's justified in building a defense around aliens. Like, same thing with Batman. You're justifying every single contingency plan that Batman has. Because at the end of the day, they're right. They're right. The Kryptonians aren't here to do well. Or at least that wasn't the original intention. And you don't know if there's more out there. And wait, actually there is one more out there. Which also makes it even weirder. Because now you have Kara Zor-El coming in here all depressed and drunk. Why? Because her dictator conquering, possibly rapist, civilization was wiped out. Yeah, so I'm so sorry. We're so sorry. You're like your warmongering, society was destroyed. Like, why should we feel sorry for her? Like, that it doesn't make sense. You see what I'm saying here? And like, now Clark Kent has got, Superman's got to be thinking that as well. Like, first off, why didn't Kara tell me that like our entire race was like a warmongering conquerors, who are all they're thinking about is I don't want to say it, like get BITCH. Yes, get money, but it's crazy. Like, you can't do that and not see major repercussions and major fallout from what it means to his character. Superman is ultimately the story of an immigrant, and what you're trying to say is, this is man, it's so hard for me to like express how badly a decision this was. Like, it seems like a small thing, but it really is not a small thing, because it really does affect how Superman does things. And I saw some arguments online. People were saying, well, it makes perfect sense, because then Superman is doing what he's doing because he wants to, because he's a good person, not because his parents told him to. That's fair. But you know what you could have done as well? You could have actually had it so that he thought, the message was real, and then it turns out Lex did doctor it. You find out Lex did doctor it for his own ends, and you would have accomplished the same thing. And you would have still held on to the idea that Lex was ultimately wrong, that not every immigrant is out to take your job. Take over the world. Like, do you understand? I'm not trying to be super woke, but it is kind of an underlying message here, what we're talking about, right? Is like, the point that Superman makes, and why Superman is the great balance between Kryptonian and human, and why that works so well, and why that is a symbol of hope, is because we're seeing that other planets, other aliens, other metahumans can exist and be good. And they're out there, and they're not all over here trying to steal money and take over the world and be tyrants. Like, the Kryptonians aren't bad. Yes, they can be powerful, but they're ultimately, in comic lore, they're a benevolent race. So changing that, all you do is justify this paranoia of aliens, right? Right? Are you starting to understand how this actually is a big deal? Like, you're justifying all the paranoia against Superman, and you're also kind of making Kara, like, I don't want to, you're making her a byproduct of that society in which she's sad to see that go. And I don't know that we should really be feeling sorry for Kara, that her warmongering, conquering, possibly rapist parents and society are dead. Like, we probably shouldn't be mourning that, right? Because they coming over here to take us over and like rule us. I don't know that we should be so sad that Krypton is gone, or that we should feel sorry for her because Krypton is gone. Just something to think about there. But anyway, so all of this goes to say, I mean, I did enjoy parts of the movie in so much of the fact that it seemed like they were trying to do the right thing, and it seemed like they were going in a way that I wanted it to go. I just think they failed to capitalize on a lot of the stuff that they set in motion. And I'm hoping that going forward, they do realize that and they make the corrections they need to make. And we see, some actual hope and no property, no excessive property damage, or at least they try to keep it to a minimum. No killing, et cetera, et cetera. I don't want to see Superman sending people to do something and then knowing full well they're going to kill somebody, or him just not caring that there's an alien, destroying his city, and it's like, somebody else has got it, whatever. Like, that's not cool at all. I'm not with that. I mean, even at the end, there's the scene where he's in the chair and his parents are there, or he's looking at the scene of his parents, which was cool, but it really should have been both parents, and it would have been cool to see, both sets of parents getting love. Because ultimately, again, Superman is a story of immigrants, of he is from another place, but he is here now, and he's taking up both sides of what make both sides great, and he's showing us that, both of these can be great, and when you put them together, it can be something even better than both sides. The whole is better for both sides of it. Get it? Like, can we agree now on why that's so bad? Like, I really feel like I shouldn't have to explain this more, but apparently some people are just not getting it. It irks me. It irks me. It bothers me. But yeah, I mean, like I said, ultimately it had some good ideas. It just failed to capitalize them for me, again, because I mean, some of it, again, is nitpicky, and I'm a bit of a perfectionist, and I acknowledge that. You probably might not feel the same way, but I do encourage you to see it, make your own decision. It was a good movie for what it was. I felt it was a little bit of a cartoony action flick kind of comic booky movie. I didn't want as serious as Zack Snyder's again, but I did want maybe something between what we got and Man of Steel. But that hit all the right notes for me too, because I'm picky. But let me know what you guys think. I will love to discuss this more. I'm probably going to put out a couple more Superman videos, honestly, because there's a bunch of things I want to talk about. So hopefully I'll be back, and you'll see me soon. We'll talk a little bit more. Yeah, I hope you enjoy the movie and go see it, and let me know what you guys think. And bye for now. Simon out.